Today's daf is daf Chav Gimel. Yesterday we studied the Mishnah, and the Mishnah on daf Chav Beis Amud Beis on the bottom of the Amud had recorded a halacha that if you build your sukkah on top of either an agala or a sfina, the sukkah is kshera. You could only use it during Chol HaMoed because on Yontif itself, you're not allowed to go into and benefit from an Elon or a Behema. We have a case here in the Mishnah where he structures his sukkah on the back of a camel. The Gemara asks, Mani Masnisen, here, line 3 on Daf Chav Gimel, that's where we're starting today. Who is the author of our Mishnah? Rabbi Akiva. And now the Gemara is going to quote a brisa that records a machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Gamliel regarding the case of a sukkah al gava sfina. The sanya ose sukkaso berosh hasfina. He structures his sukkah on top of a boat. Rabbi Gamliel posel Rabbi Akiva machshir. Gamliel disqualifies the sukkah, and the Gemara is going to analyze why this is so. A sukkah has to be a solid unit that would not be blown away by the wind. When you put it out on top of the boat and it's exposed to the air and the wind, Rabbi Gamliel says that's not a sukkah kshera because it'll be blown away. Rabbi Akiva Machshir, he holds no, that since the sukkah, had it been built, the exact same sukkah, on dry land, it would have been able to sustain the winds, because the winds on dry land are not as strong as the winds on a boat, because the boat is exposed to air from all directions, winds from all directions. Is therefore, according to Rabbi Akiva, once the sukkah, as far as the structure of the sukkah is concerned, is able to withstand the winds on the dry land, even though now he puts his sukkah on the boat, and a strong wind, which is a normal wind out at sea, but it's a stronger wind relative to the wind on ground, dry land, says Rabbi Akiva, I'm not going to analyze the sukkah by where it is in its present location. I'm going to rather analyze the sukkah in terms of the structure of the sukkah. Maisa b'Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Akiva, Shayubam Sfina. Here's a case where Rabbi Gamliel thought he could prove Rabbi Akiva wrong, because Amar Rabbi Akiva v'yasa sukkah b'rosh Sfina. Rabbi Akiva structured his sukkah on the boat, and sure enough, the winds came and blew away his sukkah. L'machar, when they looked for the sukkah the next morning, nashva ruach v'akarto, the wind came and uprooted the sukkah, and the schach probably was carried away somewhere in the ocean. Amalo Rabbi Gamliel, Akiva hechan sukkascha. In a certain facetious question here, he says to Rabbi Akiva, "Where's your sukkah?" Naively, meaning your sukkah blew away. Now our Mishnah says that a sukkah al rosh hasvina is kshera. Again, you have a problem using it on Yontif itself, but certainly on Chol HaMoed, it's a valid sukkah. Therefore, the Gemara assumes that our Mishnah reflects the shita of Rabbi Akiva. Omar Abaye. Abaye is going to set up 3 cases or 3 scenarios of a sukkah on top of a sfina. He's going to have 2 extreme cases, which are ruled universally. There's no dissension. And then he's going to have a middle case which is the gray area between the two extremes, that's where we're going to have a machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Gamliel. He says, the Kuli Alma, in a case where Heichadi Eina Yechol Lama Beruach Mitzuya Diabasha, the structure of the sukkah is such, it is so flimsy and so subject to the winds that even if that sukkah would be on dry land, a normal, regular velocity wind would blow away the sukkah. Lo klumi, that's not a sukkah. It means that even if I require nothing more than what's called a diras arai, nevertheless, this doesn't even qualify as a diras arai. It's eno klum. The most basic fundamental requirement and definition of a sukkah is that it can withstand a normal velocity wind on dry land. And this sukkah, which he put on the top of a ship, would not even withstand a regular wind on dry land. That for sure is not a sukkah. It's not even a diras aroy. Then we get to the other extreme case. Yechola lamod b'she'ena mitzuya diabasha, kuliyamalo pligi dikshera. Even Rabbi Gamliel would consent that if the sukkah had been built on dry land, it would have been able to withstand even a high velocity, unusual, unexpected wind, which is the equivalent of a normal wind out in the sea. So again, let's get that equation. The normal velocity regular wind out in the sea is equal to an Eino Mitzuya, an unusually powerful stormy wind on dry land. And even Rav Gamliel would say that this is certainly a diras keva. Why? Rashi says, this is about 8 lines down from the top of the Yomi, Dafiu leman boy sukkah diras keva, ika. Ika meaning we have a diras keva. Why? Because this sukkah on dry land would be able to withstand even a very high velocity, unusual wind. Therefore, it would be able to withstand a normal velocity wind out in the ocean, out in the sea. And any sukkah that could withstand a normal velocity wind in its place, even Rabbi Gamliel would consider that sukkah as being a diras keva, and therefore it's a valid sukkah. Keep pligi. What's the middle case, which is the subject of a debate between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Gamliel? B'diachola lamod beruach mitzuya b'yabasha, it would normally withstand a regular velocity wind on dry land, but eina yechola lamod beruach sheina mitzuya b'yabasha. But on the other hand, if you're talking about a ruach she'ena mitzuya b'yabasha, which is equal to a ruach mitzuya b'yam, then we have a machlokus between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Akiva looks at the sukkah and imagines that that sukkah was on dry land, and had it been on dry land, it's yechola lamod b'fnei ruach mitzuya, and therefore it qualifies as a diras aroy, and possibly, according to Rabbi Akiva, even as a diras keva. Rabbi Gamliel, on the other hand, says, well, would this sukkah, where it's located, meaning out on the ocean, be able to withstand a normal velocity wind in the ocean? And the answer is no, because it is only capable of withstanding the wind of a normal velocity on dry land. An unusually powerful wind, not expected on dry land, would blow away the sukkah. And in the case where the sukkah is on the sfina, the normal velocity wind that we can anticipate is equal to the unusually powerful wind of dry land. Because once you're out of the sea and you're open to all sides, there's nothing that will break the velocity of the wind, and therefore it will blow away. So Rabbi Gamliel looks at the sukkah as is, where it's located. And a normal velocity wind in that location would blow away the sukkah. It's not even a diras aroy. On the other hand, Rabbi Akiva looks at the sukkah not in its actual location, but what would be in your classic model of a sukkah, which would be a bush on dry land, would it be able to withstand a normal velocity wind? So again, Rabbi Akiva looks not at the location presently, the actual location, but rather what would it be in terms of the structure of the sukkah had it been on dry land? Rabbi Gamliel's looking, as we call it, the fall. In actuality, where is the sukkah located? If it's located, imagine on the top of a mountain, or in this case, on top of a boat out at sea, it would not be able to withstand a normal velocity expected wind out in the sea. Rabbi Akiva suffers sukkah diras haroy bina. Rabbi Akiva is going to maintain, the Gemara says that all I need is a diras haroy, and any sukkah that would withstand a normal velocity wind on dry land is called a diras haroy. But that would not satisfy Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Akiva would say, that is a diras haroy. Rabbi Gamliel is going to say, no. Let's look at where the sukkah is. And now it's not going to withstand a normal wind in the location where the sukkah is structured, meaning out at the sea. Then Rabbi Gamliel says, forget it. That's not a diras keva, and it's probably not even a diras haroy. Now the Mishnah rules that if he structures a sukkah on the back of a camel, right? A camel has a large back with humps, so he puts the sukkah in the open area between the humps, and the Mishnah validates the sukkah. Asnisin mani. Now the question is, can you? I don't know if Dr. Rubin is listening to me, but if he's there, no, it's not. I don't know. In any event,
yes, I'm here. Excuse me.
Okay, good. I don't know. I was wondering with the microphone, but so now we have a machlokes between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Masnisin mani, to whom can we relate and attribute the authorship of our Mishnah? Rabbi Meir he. Hisanya ha'ose sukkah al gabi behema. Rabbi Meir machshir. Rabbi Meir considers the animal itself to function as defanos. Again, we'll soon see what conditions have to be met, tying it down and so forth and so on. But just in pure theory, in principle, Rabbi Meir validates an animal as defanos. And therefore, if let's say he puts up certain defanos on top of the animal, and the other defanos are supplied by the animal itself, that is valid. However, the Brisa records the dissenting view of Rabbi Yehuda poses, posel. Let's analyze this machlokas. My time of the Rabbi Yehuda, Omar Kra, Chag HaSukkos Taseh Lecha Shivas Yomim. A sukkah has to be valid for 7 days. Sukkah Ruya L'Shiva Shmash Sukkah. Sukkah She'eda Ruya L'Shiva Lo Shma Sukkah. Which means that you cannot build a sukkah for X number of days. It's got to be all or nothing. Shivas Yomim, the Torah says. However, a sukkah on top of an animal, says Rabbi Yehuda, is not roy for Shivas Yomim because on Yontif itself, you're not allowed to sit in that sukkah. On Yontif, we have what's called a gzera, a shvus, which prohibits you from enjoying the benefit of an animal. Of course, the Gemara could have quoted Rabbi Yehuda as the dissenting opinion in the case of a sukkah al gabe eitz, right? We had earlier a case where he builds a sukkah on the tree, and if you remember, we discussed how many defanos of the tree is he using, and Rabbi Yehuda would certainly disqualify such a sukkah under the halacha of Eina Ru'uya L'Shiva. Why? Because when it comes to Yontif, you can't sit in that sukkah. So that's Rabbi Yehuda's shita. Now, there's a big chiddush here in Rabbi Yehuda. Why is it that I cannot use a sukkah al gabi behema, or al gabi elon, al gabi eitz, on Yontif? Is that a doraisa halacha? Absolutely not. The halacha then enjoins me from enjoying the benefit on Shabbos or Yontif of a tree or an animal is all a shvus d'Rabbanan. Now we're talking about the status of the sukkah. Rabbi Yehuda is passing the sukkah because it's Eina Ru'uya L'Shiva based on a rabbinic edict, a gzeira d'Rabbanan. Rabbi Meir blows it away. He says, Hadnami midoraisa mechsi chazia. On a doraisa level, the sukkah is Ru'uya L'Kol Shiva. Rabbanan who the Gazruba, it was the Rabbanan who prohibited using the sukkah al gabi behema on Yontif, and a psul d'Rabbanan, an isa d'Rabbanan, could not undermine the kashrus of a mitzvah doraisa, in this case of sukkah. And I have no doubt that the statement here of Rabbi Akiva would have implications in many different areas. And if you're interested, I don't know if you've ever heard of Rabbi Yosef Engel. He lived about a century ago, a genius of geniuses. One of his research projects was, does a D'Rabbanan have an impact on a Doraisa? Many sugyas in Shas. I mean, just to throw out one sugya that comes to mind, there's a halacha D'Rabbanan that an object that falls within a radius of 4 amos of a person belongs to that person. No one else is allowed to take it. And the question is, let's say a man would deliver a get to his wife. She never actually lifted up the get, but he put it down within a radius of 4 amos, which is a kinyan d'Rabbanan. Is it moil for Kiddushay Torah? Again, please, don't ask me any questions about that sugya. That's not for us. I'm just giving you a little bit of an example how Rav Yosef Engel will universalize this specific sugya about whether a D'Rabbanan has an impact on a din d'oraisa. And in our case, the question is whether a sukkah, by virtue of the D'Rabbanan that prohibits me from entering into the sukkah on Shabbos, or in this case on Yontif, will undermine the kashrus of the sukkah on a d'oraisa level. Rabbi Yehuda says yes, and Rabbi Meir says no. And again, this sugya would impact, I should say, on the question of Sukkah al Gabi Elon, which is exactly equivalent from Rabbi Yehuda's perspective to Sukkah al Gabi Behema. In both cases, the Iser D'Rabbanan will be mafkia, will undermine the kashrus of the Sukkah on a Doraisa level. Rabbi Meir disagrees, and the fact that there's an Iser D'Rabbanan does not in any way impact on a Doraisa. Midoraisa, the Sukkah is Ru'uya L'Kol Shiva. And by the way, the assumption here in this sugya is that Rabbi Meir agrees fundamentally to the interpretation of the pasuk as Rabbi Yehuda had formulated it, namely that the Torah has a requirement of Shivas Yomim, Ru'uya L'Shivas Yomim, but Rabbi Meir holds that this Sukkah al Gabi Behema is Ru'uya L'Shivas Yomim because of the Doraisa law. So our Mishnah is machshir the Sukkah al Gabi Behema, or for that matter al Gabi Elon, because it reflects the shita of Rabbi Meir. Now the Gemara quotes a brisa that once again records a machlokas between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yehuda, now in the case of what's called Pasi Biros. Asal Lebema Dofin L'Sukkah, Rabbi Meir Posel, Rabbi Yehuda Machshir. This is very interesting. Here we have it just the opposite. That Asal Sukkah Behema Dofen is Rabbi Meir is the one who's apostles the Sukkah. Shahaya Rabbi Meir Omer Kol Dover Sheish Bo Ruach Chayim Ein Osen Osolo Dofen L'Sukkah. Number one, it is excluded as a Dofen L'Sukkah. So now let's watch what goes on here. There are two different scenarios. There's one scenario where he builds a sukkah, 4 defanos or 3+, on top of an animal. Rabbi Akiva is machshir that sukkah, even though he can't go into the sukkah on Yom Tif, but on a deraisa level, it's Ru'uya L'Kol Shivim. Now we have a different case where the person builds a sukkah on the ground. He has 2 full defanos, and the third dofen is an animal. And Rabbi Meir says the animal cannot be a reliable dofen, and therefore the sukkah is psula. It only has 2 defanos. Why? Because Rabbi Meir holds that davar sheish bo ruach chayim ein osen oso dofen l'sukkah. The Gemara is going to argue why not. What's the psul? What's the disqualification? But Rabbi Meir is very consistent. V'lo lechi lemavui, v'lo pasei biros, v'lo golel lekever. Rabbi Meir excludes an animal from serving as a lechi when you have a mavui, right? You have an area that spills from Rosh Hashanah into that area. The area is surrounded by 3 mechitzos, open to Rosh Hashanah. Those 3 mechitzos, those walls on 3 sides, separate the mavui from the Rosh Hashanah, and the Bnei HaChatzer. You have many chatzeros that spill in and share that common mavui. They're not allowed to carry from their homes into the mavui or within the mavui without setting up a lechi, which is a vertical plank. And an animal, according to Rabbi Meir, cannot serve as a lechi. A live animal, yesh lo ruach chayim, cannot be a lechi. We'll see why. V'lo pasin would be rose. You remember that the Oli Regel, when they came to Yerushalayim and they traveled through a Rosh Hashanah on the way to the Beis HaMikdash, they had to get water out of a well. The well was 10 tefachim deep. Therefore, the water in the well had the status of Rosh Hashanah. How then would they be able to draw water up to the top from the bottom of the cistern? That's called Hotzah Rosh Hashanah. And Chazal made a takana that on 4 corners of the outer ground space around this bar, they put up pasei biros. And these are called diumadim. Diumadim is milashon diu, mud, 2 poles. They put them at a 90-degree angle on each one of the 4 corners, and each side had an amma and an amma. And now instead of a diumad, he wants to use an animal. Rabbi Meir disqualifies. Below golel lekever, Rashi says golel lekever, klomar so kisui li aron shalames. So you have the aron, we'll call it in English a bier or a coffin, and on top they put a golel. Now instead of a golel, he puts an animal. Now, what is the status of a golel? Rashi, if you'll notice, quotes a Gemara in Chulin, Al Pnei Asadel Rabos Golel V'Dofak. And that means that we have an equation between the golel and the mess itself. The golel is metame, b'mago, b'masa, uboel. So if a person touches the golel, which Rashi says is the covering over the aron, or Alternatively, he lifts up the golel, or as a third possibility, he leans over the golel. In all of those three cases, he contracts tumah, but not if the golel is an animal. So holds Rabbi Meir. Mishum Rabbi Yossi Aglili Amru. Instead of arguing, Rabbi Yossi Aglili wants to add another category where an animal, because it's Yesh Bo Ruach Chaim, is excluded and it's disqualified. Ein Kosvin Olav Gite Nosh. If, let's say, you had a way of tattooing into the skin of an animal, a live animal, a nusach haget, haret megureshes mimeni, and you delivered the animal to your wife, it would not be a valid get, because a valid get has to be written on something that is inanimate, that you could hold on to, but not an animate animal. And my time with Rabbi Meir, how does Rabbi Meir exclude an animal from all the above? And here we have Machlok Shin Abai and Rabbi Zeir. Abai Omar Shema Tamus. Maybe the animal will die. Now we have to make 2 points over it. First of all, so what if the animal dies? The answer is that when an animal dies, it drops on the floor. As long as it's alive, it could serve as a dofen because it's 10 tfachim high, the minimum shear of a dofen. But when it dies, it falls down. It's no longer 10 tfachim high. And the second point we want to add here to this Gemara is that, as the Israelis would say, mapidon. Why do I worry about the fact that the animal is going to drop dead? I mean, it's a healthy animal. It's been alive for a good couple of years. But that's the understanding of Abaye in Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Zera Mario gives an alternative explanation of Rabbi Meir, and that is that Shema Tivra. You can never really know for sure that the animal is going to remain in its place. It moves, and because of the locution of the animal, you don't have a reliable dofen. The animal may run away. He's sitting in the sukkah. He doesn't realize that he's missing a dofen, and the sukkah is invalid. Therefore, they invalidated an animal, according to Rabbi Meir, as a dofen of the sukkah. Now the Gemara wants to say that there are certain scenarios in which both Abaye and Rabbi Zeir would agree that Rabbi Meir would be machshir the sukkah. How so? Pil kashur. We have two elements here. First, we have a very, very tall animal, such that even if it dies and it drops, it would still be 10 tefachim high. Secondly, kashur, he ties the elephant down in such a way that the elephant cannot run away. And therefore, kuliyamalo pligi, everybody will agree that in this case, the elephant, even according to Rabbi Meir, is a valid dofen. Even if it'll die, the dead corpse of the elephant is 10 tefachim high. And we'll add that since he binds the animal, it's not going to run away. Ki pligi, where is there going to be a nafkamina between Abaye and Rabbi Zeir, two alternative interpretations of Rabbi Meir? The pil she'eno kashur, the animal is not bound. It's a gigantic animal. Laman di Omer Shema Tamus, Abaye says that Rabbi Meir is concerned that it might die, and it's not going to be 10 tefachim high. Lo chayshina, because even in the worst case scenario, if we'll have to say Kaddish over this elephant, we still have a height of 10 tefachim. But Laman di Omer Gzerah Shema Tivrach, but now it's not kosher, it's not tied down. Then according to Rabbi Zeira, Rabbi Meir would disqualify that sukkah, because chayshina, we have to worry about an unbound elephant that it might just run away. The Gemara now asks the following question: Laman di Omer Gzerah Shevet Tammuz. According to Abaye, who's worried about the death of the animal, Nechu Shema Tivrach. You just finished telling me that if the animal is unbound, but it's as large as an elephant, the carcass of the elephant is certainly going to be 10 tfachim. But wait a second, the animal's alive, it might run away. Isn't Abai concerned with the fact that the elephant might just run away? And it's alive, it's not bound. So the Gemara now drops this understanding of Abai. And the Gemara feels that if, according to Abaye, Rabbi Meir is worried about an outside chance that the animal might die, then certainly you should worry about the possibility the animal might run away. Everyone would disqualify, according to Rabbi Meir, a dauphin that's made of a peel that is unbound. Ki pligi, where is the machlokes between Rabbi Zera and Abaye? Bibehema kshura. The animal is tied down. Laman diomer gzera shemetomus chayshina. We're not talking about an elephant now. We're talking about a standard animal that, while it's alive and standing on 4 feet, it reaches the level of 10 tfachim in height, but it might die. And Abaye holds that, according to Rav Meir, chayshina lemisa, we have to worry about it dying, and when it drops, you don't have 10 tfachim in height. However, leman diomer gzera shemetivrach, according to the shita of Rabbi Zera, in this case where he binds the animal, right? Ki pligi bebehema kshura, and Rabbi Zera holds that Rabbi Meir is not afraid of death. Why should we assume that the animal is going to die? All we're left with is the possibility that the animal will run away, but now it's bound. And if it's bound, then lo chayshina, we don't have to worry about it running away. And therefore, a bound animal, according to Rabbi Zera, in Rabbi Meir, would be a kosher, a dauphin. Abai would say, according to Rabbi Meir, it's an invalid dauphin because we're afraid that the animal might die. The Gemara raises the following problem. According to Rabbi Zera, who's afraid that the animal might run away, why aren't you afraid that the animal might die? Rabbi Zera holds that even Rabbi Meir would agree that we don't have to worry about the unlikely possibility that the animal will die. That's unusual. That's totally unexpected. The animal might run away if it's not bound, but it won't die. And Abaye holds that, according to Rabbi Meir, we're worried about the outside remote possibility that the animal might die. So the Gemara asks, wait a second. I don't understand how a live animal could possibly be a candidate as a dauphin, as a mechitza. The animal has a belly and it has legs, and there's empty air space between the legs of the animal. That's called a pirza, and that pirza is more than 3 tfachim wide. Then, as a result of the pirza, you don't have a valid dauphin. A dauphin that has an opening where you cannot apply the principle of Lovit because it's wide open, that's called a pirza. A breach, that's not a dauphin, that's not a mechitza. So the Gemara gives a smart answer. The Ovidle behutza v'dafna. He actually put schach, filling up the gap between the front legs and the back legs. And the Gemara quotes 2 different types of branches. There's hutza, which are branches of a palm tree, and dafna are branches of a different kind of tree. In the English translation, they call it a bay tree. So the Gemara asks, wait a second. You're assuming that the animal could serve as a dauphin, again, unless we have possibilities. Let's say according to Reb Zera, it might run away, but if it's bound, then it could. And the Gemara asks, Vidilma Rava. Right? Rava is a biblical word, which means that the animal sometimes lowers itself. Just thinking of an English word. It crouches onto the ground. That's what a normal animal does from time to time. Then it won't have the height of 10 tefachim. You've seen it like a cat, or maybe you saw in the zoo, you saw a tiger, it crouches down. All animals eventually crouch down on the ground. So you won't have the height of 10 tefachim. So the Gemara answers, the Masechet be ashle miliel. Liel is on top. And Masechet is when you tie something tight. Ashle are ropes. So you tie a rope on the top of the animal, and it makes it impossible for the animal to crouch down. So the Gemara says, I don't get it. If that be the case, then according to Abaye, Rabbi Meir disqualifies a live animal as a dofen because we're afraid of Misa, and when it dies, it'll fall to the ground, and you don't have 10 tefachim. Is ha Masechet bi'ashle miliel. He tied the animal on top, made it impossible to crouch, and it won't fall if it dies. The Gemara says, Zimnin de mokim b'pachos mishlosha samach l'Succah. He says that what he did was he puts the animal up that the animal will be 7 tefachim high, and there's a space between the top of the animal and the schach of less than 3 tefachim. So let's say, for example, the animal is 7.1 tefachim high, tall. From the top of the 7.1 tefachim to the schach is 2.9 tefachim. And we're going to say love. And since that gap between the top of the animal, as its height is 7 plus tefachim, and the schach is less than 3 tefachim, therefore we apply the principle of love. Now, once we apply the principle of lavud, then we understand that he relies on this animal as a dofen, and he's not going to bother tying it around. He thinks he has the proper height because it's 7.1 tefachim high. And if he doesn't tie the animal with cords, then if the animal dies, it's going to drop below 7.1 tefachim, and lavadaite, he doesn't realize it. He's going to end up sitting in a pasala